Man, I really do love playing the good old classics on this beautiful screen. You know, I did see that Game Boy mods are doing pretty good on YouTube recently. I should probably get started on a video before it loses relevancy, which will be in about... Gosh dang it! This is a Game Boy. You don't say. You can tell it's a Game Boy because of the way it is. Ah, the classic array of puke green and darker puke green. What more could you possibly want? A girlfriend? Well, apparently I can't get that, but Nintendo did give us the predecessor to the Game Boy Color. I'll die before I admit that this thing is just a revision and not a true next-gen for handhelds at the time.
It's a revision!
The screen's got color now, but it's still the type of screen with no built-in lighting, meaning you could be near the surface of the sun and still not be able to see what's going on. Back then, backlit technology did exist, but it was bulky, more expensive, and absolutely tore through batteries, with the Sega Game Gear being a prime example of this. We would eventually get front-lit screens, but not until 2 more handheld models and 4.5 years later from Nintendo. Though this is just a front-lit screen, which, while back in the day was an absolute godsend when screens ranged from barely viewable to the blackest depth of space, nowadays we have technology and can do much better. So the Game Boy Advance SP had a front light, but I prefer to play Game Boy games on my Game Boy Color because it actually fills the whole screen and doesn't give me the chance to accidentally commit this sin. But dang it, I want to actually be able to see what I'm playing. Enter the modding scene.
Welcome to the modding scene, have a look around. Would you like to play some homebrew or the backups that you found? We've got mountains of downloads, some legal, some not. You want to use a VPN, but give it a shot.
Oh gosh, I meant the hardware modding scene. Quick, shut this bit down before Nintendo files a cease and desist! The modding scene for retro handhelds has really been blowing up over the past couple years, and is reaching a state of near perfection at this point. Over the past couple years, we've seen a lot of backlight kits come out for the Game Boy Color, but this one right here is the cream of the crop. One moment. Funnyplaying Game Boy Color 2.0 Q5 IPS laminated backlight kit. That really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? As this portion of the name suggests, the screen is laminate, meaning the screen and the front lens are fused together. This allows it to be both a better image quality while also simultaneously creating a much easier install process. The screen is guaranteed to be centered, and you don't have to worry about dust managing to find its way between the screen and the outer screen lens, which, in a place like Nevada where dust is constantly everywhere and there is no escape from its grasp, is constantly a problem for other screen mods I've done, as well as just general things like screen protector installs. With the right materials, this screen is one of the easiest but best mods you can install. It typically requires you to hack up parts of the original shell, but with just under 78 smackaroons and around 2 months of rating, you can pick up a kit that includes the screen and a custom shell with all of the cutouts already created. This is a much easier way to go about this, and there are plenty of designs ranging from plain colors to sick UV prints. This alright build looks great, but I'm here for nerd points, and my Hunter shell with purple buttons and a purple illuminated logo wins. Oh yeah, did I mention that the freaking Game Boy Color logo on this thing is illuminated? That used to be the thing that cost a lot of money and would take a lot of skill to install. Now it's just slap it in and go. Combined with the custom shell, this install becomes one of the easiest mods to do. It's just a matter of popping the new screen into the shell, taking apart the donor Game Boy, placing the motherboard in, and soldering 3 to 4 wires depending on the ribbon cable you receive. You want to be sure to use some good quality leaded solder. It sounds scary because of the lead, but it's much easier to work with than lead-free. Just be sure to work in a well-ventilated area. My station here came with lead-free solder and just The newer version should have the touch sensor built right into the ribbon cable, which you just slap into the top of the shell with its included adhesive. Though, I found that the adhesive was this, and just use some Kapton tape to hold it down better. After that, it's just a matter of putting in a few screws to get back together, and that's it. The screen looks more amazing than a pristine meadow. Though, I also haven't touched grass in roughly 2 months, give or take a few years. Is it that obvious? With the wire soldered in, the screen is able to detect the select and start buttons being pressed, and along with the touch sensor we installed at the top, we can change the digital alignment of the screen in all directions, along with the color of the illuminated logo. Outside of the config mode, you can also tap the touch sensor to cycle through different brightness levels, and pressing and holding cycles through 5 different pixel filters. the two acceptable ones being no filter and pixel grid. And then there's the 8th new deadly sin of vertical scan lines. If you use these modes, we can no longer be friends. Now, I prefer this here pixel grid mode because it's not perfect, which is the way that God intended it to be. I mean, Prometheus was punished by the gods for giving the gift of knowledge to man. Could you imagine what would happen to us if we had a perfect Game Boy Color screen with no pixel grid lines? No thanks, I'm not risking that. I've got plans for the next few years, including learning to ride a bike, evading taxes, becoming a millionaire, evading taxes, and playing through Eminem's Break 'Em. That's right, I've got life goals. This new screen is leagues better than the original, with a crisp image, no ghosting, and the ability to play in low light situations. There is one catch though. This thing is basically the polar opposite of the original. While the original excelled with being used in direct sunlight, the replacement makes it virtually impossible. Though that shouldn't be a problem for people like me because, again, I haven't touched grass in a while. I don't think the sun will be a problem. The screen also gets a decent bump in size too, which should help my now aging eyes. Because apparently, according to some of the students at my work, I am now an aging old man at the ripe age of 26. Frankly, this is the point where most people would stop since that's kind of the biggest issue most people want to fix. But oh no, my friends, you gotta push further, though no human has gone before. We're just making the speaker louder. That's right, speakers, the things morons on public transit like to use when they decide they want their phone conversation to be an MMO rather than a single-player experience. Back in middle and high school, the natural solution to anyone using speakerphone was to moan really loud. Teenagers truly are a different breed. The speaker on the original is okay, but it's extremely quiet, so we're gonna give it a little upgrade. The main piece is this HiLetGo 5 pieces PAM 8403 2x 3-watt mini digital power amplifier board amp, Class D 2.5 to 5 volt input. Wow, I really hate the names in online listings. Now this part isn't specifically designed for the Game Boy Color. One does exist specifically for the Game Boy consoles, but just a single one goes for roughly $10, while the one I went with is 5 for $5.50. Now I'm no expert, but crunching the numbers, that brings us to carry the 2, divide by 4, minus 7, multiply by 69, $1.10 per chip. And this is excluding the fact that with Amazon Prime, you get free shipping, which in my area arrives the next day. All praise be upon Bezos and his free next day shipping. Truly, he is a kind and just ruler. Alright, so hopefully in the near future when Amazon owns the government, I'll be able to make good use of that clip. We'll also be replacing the speaker with this Funnyplaying one. Hey, that's the same company as the LCD. Neat. I don't think replacing the speaker is necessary, but mine was dead anyway, so it needed to go. Basically, the way this will work is the amp board will go between the speaker and the main board, and we'll draw power from the small power supply down in the corner. With careful placement, we'll be able to place the amp board on the back of the speaker and still be able to get it cleanly back together. The speaker will solder onto the outside on the plus and minus terminals under the R. The hole where the speaker is currently connected to will solder onto the R on the opposite side. And we'll also solder the 5 volt plus and minus. Now, just to make sure everyone pays attention, here's some flashing warning text. Are you listening? Good. Make sure you solder these to the correct points! If you accidentally solder them backwards, you are pretty much guaranteed to blow a fuse on the board, which ends up being a somewhat easy repair, but one that requires desoldering the old fuse and soldering a new, really small one on. Take a guess on how I know. I blew mine up. Well, I think I'm going to be very sad tonight.
Oh boy.
Oh man. Luckily, if you do blow it up, it will almost always be the fuse on this specific mistake, which is F1 here on the board above the headphone jack. Modern replacements are quite a bit smaller, but it is definitely possible to find and replace. Now, on to the correct locations. The positive goes to the top joint on this power unit, and the negative goes to the bottom. For this install, I used green between the amp and the speaker, red for positive going to the Game Boy Power, black for negative, and blue going to one of the points where the speaker was originally soldered to. For the install, you'll desolder the speaker, solder to the amp to where the speaker used to be, and then solder up the power. From there, I just used double-sided adhesive to stick it down in a spot where it wouldn't interfere with the case closing, and we are good to go. Almost. The speaker is now loud. Very loud. Like, blast your eardrums, bleeding ears kind of loud. We gotta do something about that. So we take the Game Boy back apart, solder on a 39 ohm resistor onto one pad of the speaker, solder the wire back to that instead, then put it back together. Turn it on, and oh boy, combined with the screen and the flash cart, we've now got a strange whining noise. So open it back up one more time, remove the old capacitor that was here on the power unit, solder a new one on, then, for safe measure, soldering an even larger one across these two pads, cut up the case a bit to fit that new large capacitor, and then close the case up again. Throwing in some capacitors like these will add a little bit of power filtering, which in turn will help reduce noise caused by both the flash cart and the screen. But more importantly, when combined with our amp, will help reduce power spikes that would typically cause the device to hard reset. Alright, we've got the screen in, a good amp for loud sound, with a resistor to bring it back to usable volumes, and power filtering. That's all there is to do. Unless... Screw it, more mods! There is one more mod we can install, but even as intricate as the others can look, this supposed drop-in takes much more work. The end goal is to replace these batteries with a rechargeable one that is charged via a wireless charge pad. Is any of this really necessary? Of course not, but do I look like a wussy? Don't answer that. We're gonna be installing all the mods we possibly can. Or at least the ones we can afford. So this is the battery. It's square and the hole really isn't. So we gotta make it, that's right, the square hole. And to do so, we'll need to use power tools. Make sure you ask someone for help. Not me though, cause do I look like someone you can trust with a power tool? I use this bit to basically just slowly sand away the bottom to create a more square shape. The aftermath is a horrific mess that only a mother could love. But hey, the battery now mostly fits fine. I also had to pull out the metal tabs on the right side and snip a small amount of plastic from this section of the battery cover. But it closes up almost perfectly now, and it's not charging. Yeah, the first battery I got had a bad wireless charge board and wouldn't accept the charge, so defective. Luckily, my friends over at Handheld Legends sent me over a replacement for free. Not sponsored, just good people I wanted to give a shout out. But if you do want to sponsor me, hit me up, I do like money. So the new battery is in and now charging. So, was it worth it? No! I mean, if you really want to do this, then be my guest. The new battery did lightly help clean up the audio some more to make it now sound almost perfectly clean outside of blasting it at high volumes. But the work it took was not worth it. Not to mention you can't really charge it while playing it. Once it's dead, it's just gotta sit on the charge pad for a bit. Your best bet would just be these 10V rechargeable batteries, which use a USB charger, provide clean power to not just the Game Boy but other devices, and gives the device a consistent 1.5 volts until it gets low, where it then drops a bit to give devices with low battery detection the ability to see the battery is low. It's much cleaner to do, much easier, and will give you batteries you can also use in other devices. As a whole though, I would say overall these mods were worth it, at least to me. The improved screen was very much needed, and although I do occasionally like to play on the old screen for the nostalgia, the backlight just makes this one much more versatile for my typically playing indoor self. The speaker is now much louder, so I can actually hear it when in a room with a good amount of ambient noise, and the new rechargeable battery lasts just a bit longer than normal AA batteries. The shell looks great, and the illuminated logo really adds a nice talking point for those who see it. Now, there are other mods we could have installed, such as a full metal housing, which means this isn't technically the ultimate Game Boy Color, but in my eyes, this is probably the one most people want to go with, or rather the one most people would be able to afford, especially if they opt to skip the battery and stick with the old speaker to install just the screen and amp. In the end though, I would say if you can get your hands on one, the Analog Pocket would be the better choice here, especially if you don't already have a Game Boy Color to mod or want to keep your childhood Game Boy pristine and unmodded. Just be prepared to wait a while if you go down that route. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get started on my next script before that one also ends up being past the point of relevancy, which will be in about a son of a...